All right, today we're going to dive into a piece of wisdom that's, well, it's really profound, but it's also, frankly, a little bit unsettling. It shines a light on a hidden part of ourselves, a part that can stay invisible for most of our lives, quietly shaping even our very best intentions.
And this right here, this is the central idea we're going to unpack. It's a paradox that really cuts to the core of why we do what we do. I mean, think about it. The ego's role when we mess up, that's usually pretty obvious. But its involvement when we're trying to do something right, well, that's a whole other story. It's much, much sneakier.
So what does that actually mean for us in real life? It means that when someone falls into sin, it's usually not hard to see the ego's fingerprints all over it, right? You can see the raw desire, the impulse, the weakness that's pulling you towards something you know is wrong. But it's in our acts of goodness, our obedience, that the ego can be way more dangerous, and that's precisely because it's so good at hiding. And that brings us right into our first section, the ego's hidden share. We're going to explore how our ego can slip into our best actions, almost like through a secret back door, making our good deeds, believe it or not, potentially more spiritually hazardous than our obvious mistakes. Just look at the contrast here. On one side, when we do wrong, the ego is loud and clear. It's that raw desire, that immediate impulse, that feeling of weakness. But on the other side, in our good deeds, it's so much quieter. It's just a little flicker of self-admiration, or that secret love for being seen as a good person, or that subtle desire to be valued for how pious we are.
So here's the kicker. The real danger isn't always the obvious slip-up. It's the action that looks absolutely beautiful on the outside, but inwardly, it's motivated by this deep need for recognition or self-importance. A person might be doing a wonderful thing, but deep inside, they're just waiting for the applause. And that is the hidden corruption we really need to watch out for.
Okay, so this brings up a huge question, which leads us to our second section, the true test of sincerity. If our ego can hide so well in our best actions, how on earth can we know if we're being genuine? How do we start to uncover that hidden desire for recognition? Wow, this quote is like a razor-sharp tool for self-reflection. It just cuts straight to the heart of it all. True sincerity is when an action is for a higher purpose, completely free from the need for an audience. The only opinion that matters isn't what the world thinks, but the one to whom the act is actually dedicated.
And this brings the question right back to us, doesn't it? You have to ask yourself, in this good thing I'm doing, do I secretly want to be noticed? Do I want someone to acknowledge it? Is there a little part of me that wants people to know I have some kind of special spiritual insight?
So here's some of the red flags to look for. This kind of insincerity isn't always some big, dramatic thing. It can be that tiny, secret spark of pleasure you feel when someone praises your character, or feeling a bit annoyed when your good deed goes completely unnoticed, or maybe even feeling bothered when someone else gets the credit for something you did. Yep, that's the ego, still trying to get its share.
Now, this is a pretty blunt statement, but it's also incredibly healing if you let it sink in. If we're really eager for people to know about our special understanding or our closeness to God, that's not actually a sign of spiritual maturity. It's a sign that our sincerity is still, a work in progress. True servanthood doesn't look for publicity. It just seeks God.
So, what's the solution? How do we fix this? That question brings us to our third section, freedom from people's gaze. The way forward requires a massive shift in our focus, away from what other people think and towards something way more important.
And here it is, the powerful cure. The way to stop worrying about what other people think is to become fully aware of a gaze that is infinitely more important. When your awareness of God's sight becomes the main thing, the sight of other people, it just naturally starts to fade into the background. It loses its power over you.
I mean, living for people's approval is absolutely exhausting. You're always anxious, always questioning, always wondering, did they see that? Did they notice me? But in contrast, living for God's gaze brings this sense of inner rest. The question completely changes from, did they notice, to, is He pleased with me? You become focused on the truth of the action itself, not on how it's received. And there's another fascinating idea here. The fact that we can't see into the inner states of other people is actually a form of mercy. Just imagine if we could see everyone's hidden realities. We'd probably fall into constant judgment or comparison. So sometimes, not knowing is really a protection for our own hearts.
This whole journey of freeing ourselves from the gaze of others, it leads to a final destination. A completely new way of seeing the world can open up. And this is what's called witnessing the real. This is a higher state of being. It means that when a person truly comes to know God, they just don't relate to the world in the same old way. They start to see the divine source acting within and through all of creation.
So what does that actually look like? Well, it means when you see a gift, your first thought is of the giver. When you see an effect, your mind immediately goes to the ultimate cause. When you see events unfolding in the world, you recognize the hand of the one governor behind it all. The world basically becomes a mirror, reflecting a much deeper reality.
And this leads us to the final and maybe most delicate paradox of all. We often imagine that God is somewhere far away, right? That we need to go on some long, epic journey to find him. But this wisdom suggests the problem isn't distance at all. The veil is there precisely because of an overwhelming nearness that our distracted hearts just can't perceive.
So this veil, it isn't some physical barrier out there in space. It's a state of inner heedlessness. It's a distracted heart. Our hearts are simply too crowded, too busy with the world. God's nearness is this constant, all-encompassing awareness. It's we who are absent and distracted from it.
And so we end with this question to carry with you. This entire journey we've just explored, from spotting the hidden ego all the way to finding freedom in a higher awareness, it all really comes down to this one very practical challenge. How can we, in our day-to-day lives, begin to live more for His sight and less for the sight of others?